Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video. This is Mindy Eggen for Tailored Expressions, and in today's video we are going to be making an autumn themed card. We'll start out by taking a look at the supplies I'll be using, starting with this Swirls Pierce and Cut plate. I also have the Autumn Blessings red rubber stamp and coordinating dies. For cardstock, I'm using sweet potato pie, vellum, and toffee. For ink, I have pumpkin, chocolate truffle, and VersaMark. I'll be using gold embossing powder, some blending brushes, and tape. So the first thing that I'm going to do is use this plate to die cut out my background. And what this will do is it's going to leave some piercing marks in it. It's not going to die cut everything out completely. So I'm using that sweet potato pie cardstock, and I'm just putting that plate on top, holding it in place with some low tack tape. And you can see the design that it has kind of cut into the cardstock. Now there is a little bit of a border because my cardstock was 4¼ by 5½, and I'm trimming just a little bit off of each edge just to give me a little bit more margin when I attach this to a card base. But you want to make sure when you're cutting, you don't cut on those die cut lines or pieces will start falling apart on your cardstock. Ask me how I know that. But so you just want to trim a little bit off of the edges. Now I'm just working around the edges of this cardstock panel using my blending brush and the pumpkin ink pad, and I'm just going a little bit towards the center. Then I'm going to come in with the chocolate truffle very lightly around the edges, and this just really deepens that color to give this a true autumn vibe. Now, once I'm happy with all of the ink blending, I wanted to add some splatters to this because I'm a big fan of splatters. And to really tie in the gold embossing that I'm going to do, I decided to bring in my Starry watercolors that I have here. So this is the gold, and I just added a couple drops of water to it. And then I'm picking that up with my paintbrush and just tapping that all over my background. So while this is going to be drying, I'm going to work on some stamping. So this is the Autumn Blessings stamp set, and I was a huge fan of that leaf down in the bottom right-hand corner. I originally thought I would do 2 leaves, but I decided to take one off and just have the one design. I really liked the lines on it. So I have a vellum here in my MISTI stamping tool that I prepped with an anti-static powder tool. I'm inking up this single image with the VersaMark ink. Now, be aware that with using a MISTI and red rubber stamps, you want to take that foam insert out of your MISTI tool. And then after I stamp down a few of the images, I'm sprinkling on the gold embossing powder, and then I'll go ahead and melt that with my heat tool. Now, I was having some trouble lining up my dies right to make sure I'm getting this image cut out correctly. So here's a little trick that I did. I lined up the die just on some scrap vellum that I had and just trimmed that out into a smaller size, just enough to fit my die that I'll be cutting out. Then I ran that through the die cut machine. So it's going to create kind of a template for me is what it's going to do. Once that's die cut out, I'm trimming out all of the images that I heat embossed. I'm going to take that template and line this up over my embossed image. This is going to help me, especially using vellum. I can really see so that I have an even margin all the way around that image, and I'm holding that template down with some post-it tape. Then I can take that coordinating die, and this is going to fit right into it, kind of like a little puzzle piece. So you'll feel when that just kind of clicks in place, and I'll hold that down again with the post-it tape and run that through the die cut machine so I can get a perfectly die cut image from this. Next, I'm going to stamp a sentiment. So I do have my transparency grid in here to kind of help align this up straight. I have a little piece of toffee cardstock put in my MISTI tool, and this sentiment comes off of the Autumn Blessings stamp set. So I'm inking that up with the chocolate ink. The chocolate truffle ink just really ties into the autumn feel since I did use this for my ink blending on my panel. Since my card is pretty simple, I'm going to add a little bit of dimension to this. So I took my ink blended panel and I'm going to line the entire back of it with some foam tape. And I have a card base or a card front cut from buttercream cardstock, which is kind of like a ivory color. It just really fit in with the whole autumn theme versus the bright white. So I attached my ink blended panel to that buttercream frosting card panel, which measures 4¼ by 5½. I added foam squares behind my sentiment that I trimmed out into a little rectangle, and now I'm going to place down my die cut leaves. Now I am just using a regular tape runner because the pattern is pretty intense on those leaves. I'm not worried about any adhesive dots showing through. So after I have my leaves in place, I can remove the backing of the foam squares behind my sentiment, and then I'm going to line this up on the front of my card. So that will finish off my card for today. I hope you enjoyed today's card project. Really easy to create and mass produce if you wanted to send some autumn blessings to your friends and family. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Have an amazing day.